What if I told you that a group of teenagers once hacked into the CIA, one of the most secure organizations in the world? A statement so bold it's almost unbelievable, isn't it? But believe it or not, it happened. Let's set the scene. The Central Intelligence Agency, or the CIA as it's more commonly known, is not your average organization. It's the first line of defense for the United States, a beacon of intelligence gathering and espionage. Its systems are fortified, its walls virtually impenetrable, its cybersecurity top-notch. We're talking about an organization that employs some of the brightest minds in the world, people who dedicate their lives to safeguarding national security. Now imagine the shockwaves sent through the agency when they discovered a breach. And not just any breach. This was an intrusion that slipped past all their layers of security, bypassed their firewalls, and delved deep into their databases. Surprised? You should be. But here's the real kicker. The masterminds behind this daring exploit weren't seasoned hackers or foreign spies. They were teenagers. Just your average high school kids. No fancy degrees, no formal training, just a profound curiosity and an uncanny knack for code. These kids, who we'll call the unlikely hackers for now, hailed from different parts of the world. They were connected by the shared threads of curiosity, audacity, and a healthy dose of youthful rebellion. They were young, they were bold, and they were about to pull off one of the most audacious hacks in history. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll delve deeper into the lives of these extraordinary teenagers in the coming scenes. For now, just imagine the possibilities. Picture a group of youngsters, not much different from the ones you might know, sitting in their bedrooms, their faces illuminated by the glow of their computer screens, ready to take on one of the most formidable organizations in the world. Now, let's dive into how these kids managed to outsmart the top cybersecurity experts in the world. Every great heist starts with a master plan, and this was no exception. These kids, no different than any you'd find in high school cafeterias or local skate parks, began to plot one of the most audacious hacks in modern history. They were ordinary teenagers, their rooms cluttered with video game consoles, comic books, and half-finished homework assignments. They were not tech prodigies, coding wunderkinds, or cyber geniuses. They were simply curious, bold, and a little bit reckless. So how did these everyday kids come up with a plan to hack the CIA? Well, it started as most things do these days, with a Google search. They scoured the internet, teaching themselves about firewalls, encryption, and network security. They devoured forums, watched tutorials, and even enrolled in online courses. Their plan was to exploit a commonly overlooked security hole known as a zero-day vulnerability. It's a weakness in software that's unknown to those who should be interested in its mitigation. In other words, it's like finding an unlocked back door in a house presumed to be secure. They spent countless hours refining their approach. They practiced on smaller, less secure systems, learning from each success and failure. They were patient, knowing that they couldn't afford any mistakes. But it wasn't all technical. They understood the human element of security too. They learned about social engineering, the art of manipulating people into revealing confidential information. They knew that sometimes the easiest way to get past a lock is simply to convince someone to hand over the key. The resources they used were surprisingly ordinary. They didn't have access to state-of-the-art equipment or cutting-edge software. All they needed was a consumer-grade computer, a standard internet connection, and a healthy dose of audacity. They worked tirelessly, their plan taking shape in the quiet hours of the night when their parents believed they were sleeping. Their master plan was audacious, daring, and most importantly, it seemed foolproof. With a seemingly foolproof plan in hand, it was time to put it into action. Breaking into the CIA's system was no small feat, but these kids were ready to try. Their quest to breach the unbreachable began with countless hours spent researching, learning, and understanding the intricacies of the CIA's digital fortress. Night after night, they pored over lines of code, complex algorithms, and encrypted firewalls. It was a daunting task, made even more formidable by the fact that they were attempting to infiltrate one of the most secure systems in the world. The tension was palpable, thick enough to cut through with a knife. Every keystroke was a potential alarm bell, every new line of code a possible trap. The risks were high. They were not just playing with fire, they were dancing in a field of digital landmines. The first obstacle they encountered was the CIA's multi-layered defense system. The initial firewall was a beast, a digital Goliath designed to deter even the most hardened cybercriminals. But these kids, armed with nothing more than their intelligence and sheer determination, were undeterred. They found a way around it by exploiting a tiny, almost insignificant flaw in the system, a single line of outdated code. Then came the second layer, a maze of encrypted codes and algorithms more complex than the first. This was the real test. Time and again they hit roadblocks, dead ends, but they did not give up. They persevered, fueled by a cocktail of adrenaline, fear, and an insatiable desire to prove themselves. And then, just when it seemed like they were about to hit a wall, they found it. The golden key, a password so simple yet so elusive, hidden deep within the labyrinth of codes. With bated breath, they typed it in. And then, silence. The moment of truth had arrived. Would their audacious plan work, or would they be caught, their digital fingerprints left all over the crime scene? Just when it seemed like they might be caught, they made a breakthrough. But what happens when you poke the bear, or in this case, the CIA? It's one thing to pull off a hack of such magnitude, but it's another thing altogether to face the music when the dust settles. After the audacious breach, the CIA unsurprisingly sprang into action. Their response was swift, methodical, and thorough. Think of it as a digital manhunt, hunting down every trace, every digital fingerprint left behind by our young hackers. The fallout for the teenagers was inevitable. The long arm of the law closed in, and they found themselves facing severe consequences. Some of them were handed hefty fines, while others were sentenced to community service. A few even saw the inside of a juvenile detention center. But their punishment didn't stop there. The incident left a permanent mark on their records, a shadow that would follow them into adulthood. But this story isn't just about a group of teenagers who stumbled into the spotlight. It's about the bigger picture, the state of cybersecurity and what this incident meant for it. The hack served as a wake-up call, not just for the CIA, but for organizations worldwide. It was a stark reminder that no system is impregnable, that there are always vulnerabilities waiting to be exploited. In the aftermath, many organizations doubled down on their cybersecurity efforts. They tightened their protocols, ramped up their defenses, and invested heavily in training their personnel. The hack had inadvertently shone a light on the weak spots in their systems, forcing them to take action. The incident also sparked a broader conversation about the importance of teaching ethical hacking. After all, the same skills that allowed these kids to breach the CIA could be harnessed for good, used to identify and fix vulnerabilities before they can be exploited. In the end, they were just kids who bit off more than they could chew. But their audacious act had far-reaching consequences, shaping the landscape of cybersecurity for years to come. Their story serves as a cautionary tale, a reminder that with great power comes great responsibility. So, what can we learn from this unlikely story? Well, it's a potent reminder that sometimes the biggest threats come from the most unexpected places. It's not always the tech titans stirring up the virtual world, but sometimes a group of curious kids with an insatiable thirst for knowledge and a knack for problem solving. This story underscores the fact that cybersecurity isn't just about keeping the bad guys out. It's about fostering an environment where the good guys, the curious minds, the next generation of innovators, are given the tools and knowledge they need to explore safely and responsibly. For organizations, it's a wake-up call to invest in robust security systems and to never underestimate any potential threat. And for individuals, it's a lesson in the power of curiosity, creativity, and the courage to challenge the status quo. Remember, it's not always the tech geniuses who pose the biggest threat. Sometimes it's the unlikely hackers who surprise us all.